Welcome back to another episode of DEC Does What? I'm Sean Mahar along with
Erica Ringwald.
And folks, today this show is going to rock. Let me tell you. Yeah, Erica, that's right. I cannot, because we are talking about our Mines and Minerals program here at DEC.
We have a division of mineral resources that is here at DEC, and within that, there is the Mined Land Reclamation Program. So today we're joined by Psalm Wyckoff, who is a section chief in the Mined Land Reclamation Program, and Jami June. He is a Mined Land Reclamation Specialist, too, also in the Division of Mineral Resources. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, team. So, Mined Land Reclamation, I see in the notes here, we have over 6,000 mines in the state.
What? Well,
Please correct me.
We have overseen over 6,000 mines since the inception of the program. Many of those mines have already been reclaimed. So we currently only have about 1,700 active mines.
That's still a lot of mines in the state that we need to oversee.
It is.
So talk to us a little bit about that oversight. How does DEC approach, overseeing our mines and, regulating them appropriately? And sort of what is your role that you play in this universe?
Well, I could give the regional perspective because we're kind of tip of the spear. So all of our sites have permits. For the most part, in terms of compliance, we're going out and inspecting those sites and making sure that the operation is adhering to their approved plans and their permit, whether that's how deep they can mine, how far they can mine laterally, their separation from property lines, if their pollution controls are intact, those sorts of things. And we also conduct the technical reviews of the permit applications. It could be a simple, small sand and gravel mine to hundreds of acres mining into the water table, controversial potential groundwater impacts. Like there's a very large breadth of sites that we oversee. But that's, we're doing it at the plan review level, but also we're getting out boots on the ground, inspecting these sites quite a bit.
So we'll talk about those field inspections in a minute, but let's talk about, I know you mentioned sand and gravel. What are the other types of mines that we have here in the state that we're overseeing?
Well, sand and gravel mines are the most common mines that we have. We also have mines that are mining so-called hard rock. Both sand and gravel and hard rock mines could be considered producing construction aggregates for road construction or building construction. And then we have other mines that are producing things such as salt, garnet, zinc, bluestone. The zinc mine is going to have a test pilot for mining graphite, which hasn't been mined in New York in a long time.
Well, that's really interesting about the different types of pilots mines do. So how do we approach that with a mining facility that's maybe looking to mine something new? And are we working with the U.S. Geological Survey to determine what may be present in New York? Or how does a pilot like that come to be?
The permittee has done some test coring in their life of mine to determine if they have any critical minerals, and they found some areas in which the graphite deposit is promising. It happens to be in their life of mine, so they've already been permitted to mine there for zinc. So it's not a significant change in their plans. So they will mine a small area. They have a temporary processing facility at the current processing facility, and if it looks like it's going to be economically productive, we'll have further conversations with them.
Interesting. So, Jami, back on the field visits and site inspections that we do, what is that like? And are you in hard hat construction gear as you're going out there? Are you getting to drive some of the equipment and make sure it's functioning properly? What are the things we're looking for on those sites?
So, yes, we have to go out with full PPE. And really what we're doing when we go to a site, it's basically a snapshot in time. So we're looking at it to make sure, A, they're complying with the mining plan, so their method of mining, and everything associated with that, but also to make sure that the way they're mining will ultimately result in them reclaiming the site the way that they've proposed it to us. So we're taking a lot of measurements in the field, again, looking at the depth, the lateral area. We're looking at stormwater discharges, dust controls, noise and visual screens, the type of processing they're doing at the facility. We cross a lot of different programmatic lines, especially with Division of Water, even ecosystem health, materials management, and when it comes to importing materials into our facilities. So we're trying to check a lot of boxes when we're out there. And over the past few years, we've even been using the iPads to great success in terms of using GPS and taking measurements at our sites. We do a lot of hiking around these places. We're getting up and down some pretty tough terrain. We drive around the site. We don't drive the permittee's equipment.
Come on, you got it.
We don't get to do that.
So, Jami, that's interesting. You brought up reclaiming the mine, right? And that's I think what this part of the Division of Mineral Resources really focuses on. And so, what is the process of reclaiming a mine, and what does that look like? And what are these mines used for after they've been used for mining purposes?
So I think Psalm could probably speak to some of the bigger, more successful reclamation projects across the state, but broadly, we approve a certain reclamation plan for a site. So it could be anything from a straightforward, they're going to grade the slopes off at a sand and gravel site, to the slopes that meet the requirements in our regs, and just revegetate it to a grassland. Or it could be a massive quarry that's being mined into the water table, and when they're done mining, it's going to fill back up and it's going to be a lake or some sort of recreational facility with a lake associated with it in the future. So the elements we're looking at are we're making sure that the slopes or the mine faces are at the configuration that we've approved as part of the plans. The revegetation plan is big. There's pretty stringent requirements in our regulations regarding the success of plantings, and whether that's trees or grasses. And certain element, it can get more specific. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole if there's going to be like a permanent discharge at a facility.
You can go as deep as you want on this show today, Jami.
But like I said, Psalm could probably speak to more of the specific successes, we've had some unique reclamation in Region 4, but I think some of the other regions have some cooler ones. So,
Psalm, what's your experience been?
So, well, I'll tell you about a few of our interesting reclamation projects. We're particularly proud of the Vanderbilt Governor Talc Mine reclamation. That site was reclaimed, I believe, in 2017. It was 184 plus acres of affected land, and it was successfully reclaimed mainly as meadow grassland type of land use, and it won a national award for reclamation from the a National Association of State Land Reclamationists.
Neat.
That's in Region 6. And a couple of other interesting projects. There is a site in Region 3 called Frozen Ropes, and it's a smaller facility, but it was reclaimed to a sports recreation operation. So now there's baseball fields and kids are playing there, and it's a great facility for the community.
So are these mines getting filled back in and brought up to the grade that they were, or are they at the level of that they were mined and then they're reclaimed from there? What does that process look like?
Generally, their reclamation plans show that they will mine to some certain depth, and they will have setbacks and side slopes that adhere to the regulations, and they'll revegetate in accordance with the plans and whatever their reclamation objective is. So often it's a basin or a bowl with a flat floor that's meadow, and side slopes that are also grassed over and is also meadow. But we also have several mine sites that are reclaimed as water bodies. So they'll operate either a sand and gravel. They will operate below the water table by a drag line or a suction dredge or some other method. If it's a larger rock quarry, they'll dewater to keep the floor dry while they extract the mineral resources. And then I'll turn off the pumps at final reclamation, let it fill up, and then you'll have a lake that will serve a productive use.
So I went to school in Indiana, and we used to go swimming in the quarries all the time.
That explains it.
Totally not safe.
We
thing to
discourage
do.
that.
Yeah. Anyway, but I would like to hear from each of you. I'm sure you have to get underground occasionally. A story about an inspection or a visit to a mine and what that was like and how far deep you got to go.
Well, I don't think Jamie's been underground yet.
Only at Wingdale.
Oh, right. Yeah. But this past year, I got to go to the zinc mine for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that place is really, really interesting. It feels like an anthill. Where the
Because of all the little tunnels.
Yeah, all the little tunnels. And you spiral down on a little, like a side-by-side four-wheeler type vehicle.
With guardrails, I'm sure.
No
Yep.
guardrails because you're underground. You're in the tunnel, and it's these tunnels are so tight as they turn and they spin downward, and you go down several thousand feet.
Oh boy!
And it's quite warm and humid down there, and it's amazing the large vehicles that are going from the active mining area and driving up these tight turns to get up to the crusher where they dump their load, where it's then crushed, and then it is brought up to the surface in something called a skip. It was really quite interesting, where some of the other mines, underground mines in the state, are more regular. You know, they're a regular pattern of tunnels or mine shafts and
Yeah, so are these like more open face mines that we deal with in New York, or are they really the true like mine you think of below ground with like one entry point and then you've got tunnel networks below ground?
We only have a very small handful of underground mines. Most of our mines, as I mentioned before, are sand and gravel. They're open pit, a basin. Even most of the hard rock aggregate quarries are just large open basins.
So I did have the awesome opportunity a couple months ago of going to a salt mine, and that was we went underground the length of the Empire State Building and a half, and it was like a 5 to 7 minute elevator ride to get down to where they were mining salt. And I'll never forget some of the experiences of like when they turn off the lights and it is the blackest black that you will ever see. But it's so fascinating the way that they approach, mining and mine safety. It's very critical. And, thinking about how when they're actively mining, they're actually thinking about the reclamation in the long run and like how is this going to be used? How are they going to ensure stability and things like that? So how do you approach conversations with the mine operators in general as, we're actively inspecting mines and thinking about that reclamation? And are they generally receptive to, what we're saying, or sort of what is the relationship like with mine operators?
So I can speak a little bit on that just because I'm doing it every single day. But I'd say for the most part, we've come a very long way in terms of buy-in from the regulated community with regard to the way that they're mining. And in a lot of respects, it's more economical for them to mine in the way that it's been designed in their plans to meet the reclamation objective that they've proposed with us. It takes a lot of work and negotiation and dealing with people, not just the technical aspect, to get plans to where we need them to be in the long run, or to get them to agree to do things at their sites to meet. It might not even be things in the mining law. It could be stormwater controls. It could be dust controls. Sometimes that, unfortunately, requires enforcement. But we do our best in the region to be very proactive and try to predict problems before they happen. That's what we do in the field. And we try to, again, be proactive in the permitting process as well. If we can foresee, based on experience, issues that might come up or a method that they should mine in order to meet their reclamation goals, then we'll do our best to get them there.
Well, we're talking to Jami June and Psalm Wyckoff, two of our Mined Land Reclamation Specialists here at DEC. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about community engagement and how DEC approaches the community in our Mined Land Reclamation Program. So stay tuned.
Want the latest news in air quality? Sign up for DEC Delivers to receive Airmail, DEC's monthly air quality newsletter, which includes information on air quality and other air-related issues in New York State. Sign up today by visiting dec.ny.gov and search DEC Delivers.
All right, coming back from the break here, folks. So community engagement. Obviously mines are located sometimes within communities, and I know a lot of what we do is making sure that local residents and communities understand what's going on, and obviously the safeguards and rigor that we put in the permitting review process that we have. How does community engagement factor in? And when you're thinking about reclamation, how much of the community impact or community views, impact what we require facilities to do in reclamation?
And are there things that, like, the public usually needs to understand that they don't understand about mining and reclamation and how that process works? Like, what are the most frequently asked questions you get?
When DEC receives a permit application and we begin the technical review, it's also going to go through seeker. It's going to go through a seeker review and everything that goes along with that, including public comment periods and public engagement. If it goes so far as getting a POSDEC or positive declaration, then we also have scoping where the public gets involved as well. So those are the very common ways that we engage with the public. And it is a time period when the public can ask us questions. It depends. The public's interest depends often on the type of mining that's being proposed. Of course, a sand and gravel operation is going to have spark different interest than perhaps a hard rock quarry. The public's often interested in what the potential impacts to groundwater or surface water might be, air quality impacts. They're very concerned often with visual impacts and potential noise impacts. Traffic is another aspect of mining operations that the public has a lot of interest in, and they will ask questions and comment on it. And through the seeker process, we engage with them to help them understand the review process and what's in the application, as well as what the mitigation measures are and how effective they might be.
So you've both brought up a couple times now, groundwater and the influence mines have on groundwater and mining in the water table. I know some of the concerns that we hear from community members is, is this safe? Is this posing a risk to water quality? So can you walk us through how we approach sort of protecting groundwater when a mine is mining into the water table generally?
Each mine has a different setting. Sand and gravel operations and hard rock quarries or other quarry types of quarries have a different setting as well. And so we have to do a thorough technical review, and we often require a hydrogeologic investigation to support the application. In sand and gravel operations, they're dredging or extracting the sand and gravel in a different way, but they typically are not dewatering. They're not depressing the water table. So you wouldn't typically see much change in the water table. So that's less of a concern in that type of a setting, where in a quarry, if they're going to be mining into the water table, they will be proposing dewatering. And the hydrogeologic analysis would be very different and would require a certain monitoring period to determine the groundwater regime that is currently exists and what the groundwater situation, what the groundwater regime would look like at full build out when they're fully dewatering the quarry, and then again when they turn off the pumps and everything stabilizes. That hydrogeologic assessment typically requires monitoring of the groundwater for a fair period of time, conducting pumping tests, pumping other geotechnical, and analyzing the potential for depressing the water table in such a way that it impacts nearby groundwater users.
Yeah, well, I guess I can just add from the regional perspective, as Sam mentioned, we do the upfront analysis, but we're also requiring, for the most part, a lot of our mines, especially our hard rock quarries, they have to submit ongoing monitoring data for us to review so that we can make sure, more specifically, that their projections into the future are accurate. Because if they're not, the idea is we can catch it before they might draw down the water in someone's well. So that, I think that would be the next piece to it.
So obviously a lot of rigorous oversight that takes place here, and that's a lot.
Switching gears, could you guys tell us a little bit about your journey to join the team at DEC?
When I was in college, and that's farther in the past than I care to admit, I did
I disagree with
Not that long ago.
I did an internship with the Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District, and we did a permit renewal application for a little sand and gravel operation.
Some hands-on experience right there.
Yep, and I was the rod man on the survey team. And I also went out with the district manager to talk to a couple different farmers who were interested in developing a sand and gravel operation on their farm, and we would kind of give them an assessment of what we thought might be there as far as how much sand and gravel they had and what it would take to get the application. After college, I worked for an environmental consulting company that downstate in Region 3. And we were mainly doing work for the local water companies. But there's several big quarries in that area with a lot of residential development around them, and the water companies supplied water to them. So I found that I was working on projects where we were looking at what are the potentials of the operations dewatering to influence the water company wells. Then I moved up to the Albany area and worked for an environmental company that did a lot of work with mining companies. So I learned how to draw mining plan maps and write mining plans. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And then I went to county government and I worked in the planning and solid waste department in Otsego County for 8 years before finally coming to DEC, which was always my goal.
So you could live out your dream.
Yeah.
That's what DEC is all about.
That's
and
right.
Here
Making
I
dreams
am.
happen.
So, I worked in Region 4 before I came to central office, which is where I worked with Jami.
Yep. So I started at DEC when I was in college, which is also getting a little bit uncomfortable with how far away that was.
It's just going to get further, Jami.
But I did 3 summers as an environmental engineer tech in remediation and got to do some pretty cool stuff and see some cool remediation projects like long-term groundwater treatment, landfill closure type projects, and do some soil sample analysis, which was a great experience. And then I did a brief stint in the private sector, and then in 2016 came back in the Mined Land Reclamation Program, and like Saul mentioned, we worked together for 5 years, yeah.
So you really are a Jami of all trades then, right? Have a very diverse experience here at DEC. And, we're talking to Psalm Wyckoff and Jami June here of our Mined Land Reclamation Program. We're going to take a quick break and come back and hear about what their typical days are like.
Getting ready to hit the trails? Before you head out on your next adventure, it's important to be prepared and make sure you have the 10 hiking essentials. Carry the following in your pack to ensure a safe and enjoyable experience for all. Navigation, such as a map or compass, insulated clothing and rain gear, a light source with extra batteries, first aid supplies, emergency kit, fire starting supplies, food, water, sun and insect protection, and an emergency shelter. To learn more, visit dec.ny.gov and search Hike Smart for more information.
So tell me a little bit about your typical day and the thing that you love most about your job.
I don't have a typical day, but I guess I'll bullet point what it might look like. So, I'm in charge of implementing the Mined Land Reclamation Program at the regional level. So that could be reviewing complex, controversial permit applications. It could be doing internal coordination with several different programs at DEC for a number of different projects, going out and doing field visits, getting in the weeds and enforcement matters, fielding complaints, especially blasting complaints from the public, doing a lot of dialogue with the public and our permittees. And I guess that would be a typical day. So I'm usually exhausted by the end of the day.
So what's the best part?
Honestly, the best part for me, I love the technical stuff, but being able to coordinate with so many different people within DEC, but also with our regulated community and consultants to get places permitted, get mineral reserves into the economy, but also see these sites to the finish line, which is the goal of the program. It's pretty awesome. And we work from people all the way from in the mountains of the Catskills to multinational corporations. So we've got to be very agile with how we deal with people as well. And I think that's probably my favorite part.
Cool. Psalm?
All right. Well, I will also say no day is typical. On every day that I come in, I might have a plan, an idea of what I'm going to do, and have, priorities that I need to work on. And, an email pops in or a phone call happens, and all those plans, go out the window. But, I'm working on our climate policy for the mining program. We're working on proposed regulatory revisions. We're working on anything from developing guidance and training programs for the regional staff, supporting them in technical reviews. We'll get phone calls from the regions asking for assistance with something like a noise analysis or a hydrogeologic analysis, or, some kind of crazy proposal that comes, out of the blue, and they're looking for some guidance, and we provide that to try to ensure that there's consistency across the state and across all the regions. We also administer the financial security aspects of the program and the regulatory fees in central office. So the financial security projects, if we have to seize financial securities from a permittee that doesn't meet their obligations and doesn't get the reclamation done, then we have funds to do those projects. And those projects are the kind of the most fun, I think, for those of us who are in central office, the most gratifying to see some place that it was essentially an abandoned mine and use the resources that are at hand to get those sites reclaimed and return them to productive use.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. So, we've come full circle on this show today. So, Psalm and Jami, thanks for coming on. Something tells me we only scratched the surface, really, of this conversation. So, if folks want to dig deep, check out dec.ny.gov for more information on our Division of Mineral Resources and our Mined Land Reclamation Program. But, Psalm and Jami, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So that was a great conversation, Sean.
It was, Erica. I was really impressed by those two and the sort of technical know-how that you need to have to really approach these mining facilities and make sure we're overseeing them and then restoring them once the mining is complete.
Super cool.
What was the coolest thing you learned today, Erica?
The coolest thing I learned that most of the mines in New York State are open mines and they're not taking an elevator thousands of feet underground. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was interesting to learn that too. And we've got to get you out of some mines because I'll say the one mine that I did go underground in was pretty cool to see. Well, Erica, we've now gone below ground.
Uh-huh.
We've gone terrestrial on the show. We've
Yep.
talked about air. And
Yep.
the next episode coming up, we are going to go under the sea.
Super cool.
It's going to be. So stay tuned for our next episode on the Artificial Reef Program here in New York State.
The more you know.
The more you know. And what I learned today from the show too, Erica, is you are a gem. And what should everyone do?
Get outside.
DEC Does What? Is a production of DEC's Division of Communication, Education, and Engagement. Our theme music is an original composition by Mike Menza, wildlife technician with DEC's Division of Fish and Wildlife. Like what you heard on this episode? Please leave a review and share this episode with others. Want to learn more about DEC's wide-ranging efforts to protect New Yorkers and the environment? Visit dec.ny.gov or connect with us on social media. You can find us using @NYSDEC. For more information on DEC Does What, visit dec.ny.gov/podcast.